Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched space bend around them as they dropped out of hyperspace. The massive Galactic Council station spread before them like a metal city floating in the stars. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The station stretched for kilometers in every direction, with thousands of docking ports and gleaming towers that housed beings from across the galaxy. Behind the Liberty, 43 human warships took their positions. These were not pretty ships built for show. They were scarred veterans of 12 years of war against the Zephyrian Empire. Burn marks covered their hulls where enemy weapons had struck. Patches of newer metal showed where repair crews had worked around the clock to keep them fighting. Some ships still had blast holes that would need proper shipyard repairs when they got home. Jake looked at his crew working at their stations. Every person on the bridge had seen real combat. They moved with the quick efficiency of people who had learned that being slow meant being dead. The youngest crew member was 25. The oldest was 52. All of them had scars, either visible on their bodies or hidden in their minds. Admiral Lisa Parker stood beside Jake, reading through the diplomatic files on her tablet. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but Jake had seen her command fleet actions that saved entire colonies. The tablet in her hands contained everything humans knew about galactic politics, which was not very much. Until 6 months ago, humans had no idea the Galactic Council even existed. The war with the Zephyrians had changed everything. For 12 years, humanity fought alone against an alien empire that wanted to wipe them out completely. Human worlds burned, billions died, but humans learned to fight back harder than anyone expected. They built weapons that worked. They developed tactics that won battles. They turned their whole civilization into a war machine that could match anything the Zephyrians threw at them. Now, finally, other aliens had noticed. The Galactic Council sent a message 3 months ago. They invited humanity to join their organization of peaceful civilizations. Jake wondered if they knew what kind of civilization they were inviting. Captain Ryan Bell, the fleet tactical coordinator, walked up to them with a datapad full of sensor readings. Ryan was 38 years old and had commanded destroyers. Since he was 29, he knew how to read a battle situation faster than most people could blink. "Admiral," Ryan said quietly, "the alien ships around the station are moving into defensive positions. Nothing aggressive yet, but they are getting ready for trouble." Lisa nodded. She had expected this. Most species probably arrived at the council with exploration ships or ceremonial vessels. Humans came with a battle fleet that had fought in over 200 major engagements. Every ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Every captain knew how to use it. "Any weapons locks?" Jake asked. "No, sir," Ryan replied. "But 12 different ship types are scanning us with everything. They want to know what we can do." Jake understood their concern. Human ships did not look like peaceful vessels. The UES Liberty was a heavy cruiser designed for ship-to-ship combat. Her main guns could punch through 3 meters of armor plating. Her missile bays held enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The other ships in the fleet were destroyers, frigates, and assault carriers. All of them were built for war. 3 days ago, this same fleet had fought Zephyrian raiders near the Titan system. They had won, but 2 ships were so badly damaged. They almost did not make it to the council station. The humans were arriving fresh from battle. With their weapons still warm and their crews still on edge, a communication signal came in from the council station. Jake activated the main screen and found himself looking at a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. The being wore elaborate robes that marked him as someone important. "Human vessels," the alien said in surprisingly good English. "I am Council Speaker Veltar of the Ultron Collective. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you to our space. Please follow the navigation beacons to Docking Bay 77 Alpha. Your escort ships may use the auxiliary docking areas." "Thank you, Council Speaker," Jake replied. "We are honored by your invitation." The alien paused for a moment, clearly studying the human ships on his own screens. Commander, forgive my directness, but your fleet appears to be heavily armed and recently engaged in combat. Is there some threat following you that the Council should know about? Jake exchanged glances with Lisa. The question was fair, but it showed how little the Council understood about human reality. No immediate threat, sir, Jake answered. However, the Zephyrian Empire remains hostile to human worlds. We maintain combat readiness as a matter of necessity. Another pause. I see. Well, the Council Station is a place of peace. All weapons must remain powered down during your visit. Of course, Jake agreed. He gestured to Ryan, who began issuing stand-down orders to the fleet. As the Liberty moved toward the docking bay, Jake watched the alien ships around them. Most were sleek and beautiful, clearly built by civilizations that had never needed to worry about survival. They looked like art projects compared to the brutal functionality of human warships. Dr. Amy Foster entered the bridge carrying a briefcase full of diplomatic materials. Amy was humanity's chief xenobiologist and their newly appointed ambassador to the Council. She was 41 years old, with brown hair and intelligent green eyes. Before the war, she had studied alien life forms in peaceful laboratories. Now, she studied them to find weaknesses that could be exploited in battle. How are we looking? Amy asked. Nervous aliens and concerned looks, Lisa replied. They were not expecting us to arrive armed for war. Can you blame them? Amy said. Most Council species have been at peace for centuries. They probably have not seen a real warship in generations. Jake thought about that. 12 years of war had changed humanity completely. Every human knew how to fight. Every human city had defenses. Every human child learned to hide in shelters when the sirens sounded. War was not something that happened to other people in distant places. It was daily life. The docking process took an hour. Human ships were larger and more heavily armored than most Council vessels, so the docking bays had to be reconfigured. Jake watched alien workers scrambling to install power connections and atmosphere tubes that could handle human equipment. Colonel Steve Mitchell joined them on the bridge as they prepared to disembark. Steve was Amy's military escort and the commander of the Marine detachment aboard the Liberty. He was a big man with graying hair and scars on his hands from close combat fighting. Steve had been fighting Zephyrians since the war began. He trusted aliens about as much as he trusted poison. The Council delegation is waiting for us, Steve reported. 12 different species, all very curious about our arrival. Any weapons detected? Lisa asked. None. They really do seem to be peaceful. Jake found that hard to believe. In his experience, beings who claimed to be peaceful were usually just waiting for someone else to do their fighting for them. The Liberty settled into its docking berth with a soft thud. Outside the viewports, Jake could see alien beings gathering to watch the humans disembark. Some looked excited. Others looked worried. All of them looked soft and unprepared for the realities of a hostile universe. Ready? Amy asked, straightening her diplomatic uniform. Jake nodded. Let us go meet the neighbors. As they walked toward the airlock, Jake wondered what the Council expected from humanity. Did they want humans to become peaceful like them? Did they understand that peace was a luxury humans had never been able to afford? In a few hours, the Council would learn that humanity had not come looking for protection. They had come as equals who had earned their place through blood and fire. The Council amphitheater was the largest room Jake Harrison had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high that clouds could have formed inside it. Rows of seats curved around the central speaking area in perfect circles, each row higher than the last. Beings from hundreds of different worlds sat in those seats, watching the humans with curious eyes. Dr. Amy Foster walked to the center of the amphitheater, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind her, Colonel Steve Mitchell and his Marines stood at attention in their dress uniforms. The humans looked small in the enormous room, but their military bearing made them impossible to ignore. Council Speaker Veltar stood at a podium that rose from the floor like a silver tree. His forearms moved in graceful gestures as he spoke to the assembly. Distinguished representatives, Veltar said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. Today we welcome a new species to our council. The humans come to us from the Outer Rim, where they have faced challenges unknown to most of our civilizations. Amy looked up at the alien faces surrounding her. She saw beings that looked like walking trees, others that resembled large insects, and some that seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them appeared healthy and well-fed. None showed signs of stress or fear. These were people who had lived their entire lives in safety. Ambassador Foster, Veltar continued, please tell us about your people and your place in the galaxy. Amy stepped forward to the speaking area. A small platform rose from the floor to lift her higher so all the representatives could see her clearly. She had practiced this speech many times, but standing here surrounded by hundreds of alien beings made her nervous. Thank you, Council Speaker, Amy began. My name is Dr. Amy Foster, and I speak for the United Earth Federation and all human colonies. We are honored to be invited to join this Council of Civilizations. She paused and looked around the chamber. Every eye was on her. She could feel their curiosity and their caution. Humans are a young species by galactic standards, Amy continued. We have been traveling between stars for less than 200 years. In that time, we have established colonies on 47 worlds and built a civilization based on exploration, scientific advancement, and the protection of our people. Murmurs arose from the assembled aliens. Amy heard translation devices humming as her words were converted into hundreds of different languages. 12 years ago, Amy said, we encountered another spacefaring civilization, the Zephyrian Empire. Made contact with our colony on Kepler Prime. We hoped for peaceful relations and cultural exchange. The murmurs grew louder. Amy could see that many of the aliens were leaning forward in their seats. The Zephyrians did not come in peace, Amy said simply. They came to conquer. They attacked our colony without warning, killing millions of civilians. They declared that humanity was a disease that needed to be removed from the galaxy. Shocked silence filled the amphitheater. Many of the alien representatives looked at each other with confusion and disbelief. Amy realized that most of these beings had never experienced unprovoked aggression. For 12 years, Amy continued, we have been at war. The Zephyrians have attacked our worlds, destroyed our cities, and killed our people. They have shown no interest in negotiation or peace. They want only our complete destruction. Lieutenant Commander Kate Davis sat in the observation area above the main chamber, monitoring communications between the various alien delegations. Her equipment picked up dozens of conversations as the representatives discussed what they had just heard. They are talking about us, Kate reported over her communicator to Admiral Parker, who was watching from the human delegation area. Most of them seemed shocked. Some are asking if we are telling the truth. Admiral Lisa Parker nodded grimly. She had expected this reaction. Most Council species had probably never seen real warfare. The concept of total war for survival was foreign. To them, on the speaking platform, Amy activated a holographic display system. Images appeared in the air above her head, showing the devastation of human worlds attacked by Zephyrian forces. This is New Beijing colony after the Zephyrian attack. In 2387, Amy said. The hologram showed a city reduced to smoking ruins. 15 million people lived here. The Zephyrians killed them all. Gasps and shocked cries came from the alien audience. Several representatives stood up from their seats, pointing at the images and speaking rapidly in their own languages. Amy changed the display to show a space battle. Human ships fought desperately against larger Zephyrian vessels, explosions lighting up the darkness between stars. This is the Battle of Kepler. Station, Amy explained. We lost 80 ships and 4,000 crew members defending a civilian evacuation convoy. The aliens watched in fascination and horror as human tactics unfolded before them. They saw human ships ram into enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They watched human crews sacrifice themselves to save others. They witnessed the kind of desperate fighting that came from having no choice but to win or die. General Kickstar of the Hegemony Defense Force, A large reptilian being with scales that changed color with his emotions stood up in his seat. "Ambassador Foster," he called out, "these tactics your people use are very aggressive. Do you always fight with such violence?" Amy looked up at the general. His scales had turned a deep red color, which she guessed meant he was either angry or excited. "General," Amy replied, "we fight to survive. When someone tries to kill your children, you use whatever methods work. We did not choose this war, but we will not lose it." Captain Ryan Bell, watching from the tactical observation post, noticed increased activity among the alien ships stationed around the council chambers. Many were powering up their sensors and moving to more defensive positions. "They are getting nervous," Ryan reported to his team. "Half the fleet out there just went to yellow alert status." Dr. Marcus Webb, the human team's xenopsychologist, was taking notes on alien reactions throughout the presentation. He noticed that the representatives fell into three clear groups. Some appeared sympathetic to humanity's situation. Others seemed frightened by human capabilities. A third group looked suspicious, as if they doubted the human story. Amy continued her presentation, showing more battles and explaining human military doctrine. She described how humans had learned to adapt quickly to new threats, how they had developed weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter Zephyrian advantages, and how they had turned their entire civilization into a defense against extinction. "Your people seem very focused on warfare," observed Council Member Tisara, a delicate being that looked like a walking flower. "Do you have any peaceful accomplishments?" Amy smiled for the first time since beginning her presentation. "Of course. We have made advances in medicine that have eliminated most diseases. Our scientists have developed new forms of energy that power our cities without harming our environment. We have created art and literature that expresses the beauty we find in the universe." She paused and looked around the chamber again. "But we have learned that all of these accomplishments are meaningless if we cannot protect them. Peace is a luxury that must be defended. Beauty cannot exist if those who created are dead." The chamber fell silent again. Amy could see that her words had affected the aliens in different ways. Some nodded in understanding. Others looked troubled. A few seemed angry. Council Speaker Veltar stepped forward. "Thank you, Ambassador Foster. Your presentation has been very informative. The Council will now recess to discuss what we have learned." As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Amy rejoined her human colleagues. Colonel Mitchell approached her with a concerned expression. "How do you think that went?" he asked quietly. Amy looked back at the empty amphitheater. "I think we just scared the hell out of them," she said. "The question is whether they will respect us for it or fear us because of it." From the observation deck, Admiral Parker watched the alien delegations gathering in small groups, their conversations intense and animated. She had a feeling that humanity's introduction to galactic civilization was about to become much more complicated. 3 weeks had passed since the humans first spoke to the Galactic Council. The diplomatic meetings continued every day, with endless discussions about trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and peaceful cooperation. Dr. Amy Foster attended every session, answering the same questions over and over again about human intentions and military capabilities. Many of the alien representatives still seemed uncomfortable around the humans. They would speak politely during official meetings, but Amy noticed they kept their distance during social gatherings. The humans were invited to cultural events, but they often found themselves standing alone while aliens clustered together on the other side of the room. Commander Jake Harrison spent most of his time aboard the Liberty, coordinating with his fleet captains and monitoring Zephyrian activity in nearby systems. The enemy had been unusually quiet since the humans left for the council station, but Jake knew that silence usually meant the Zephyrians were planning something big. Captain Ben Rodriguez was reviewing defensive protocols with his crew when the first alarm started sounding. Ben commanded the destroyer UES Vigilant, one of the fastest ships in the human fleet. His sensors detected the incoming Zephyrian ships before anyone else. "Contact," Ben called out over the fleet communication channel. "Multiple Zephyrian vessels dropping out of hyperspace." Count is 36 ships, including at least 4 heavy cruisers. Jake appeared on the communication screen from the Liberty's bridge. How did they find us? They must have followed our hyperspace trail, Ben replied. They have been tracking us for weeks, waiting for the right moment to attack. The Zephyrian fleet moved toward the Council station with deadly purpose. These were not raiders looking for easy targets. This was a full military strike force. Armed with the most advanced weapons the Empire could build, Admiral Lisa Parker arrived on the Liberty's bridge as general quarters. Alarms echoed through the human ships. Around them, the peaceful Council station was erupting into chaos. Alien vessels that had never seen combat scrambled to organize some kind of defense. Status report, Lisa ordered. Zephyrian fleet is moving to attack formation, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor. Station. They are targeting the Council chambers directly. This is not a random raid. They want to destroy the entire station. Jake watched the alien ships struggling to respond to the crisis. Most of them were moving slowly, their crews clearly unfamiliar with emergency procedures. Several ships were trying to flee the area instead of fighting. The few that attempted to form defensive lines were doing so without any coordination or tactical planning. Admiral, Jake said, the Council fleet cannot handle this attack. They are going to be destroyed, Lisa nodded grimly. All ships, this is Admiral Parker? Form attack formation Delta 7? We are engaging the Zephyrian fleet immediately. The human ships moved with practiced efficiency. Within 3 minutes, they had formed a battle line between the Zephyrians and the Council station. Every human crew member knew their job and did it without hesitation. They had trained for situations exactly like this. Captain Ryan Bell, aboard. The destroyer UES Defiant took tactical command of the human formation. All ships target the lead Zephyrian cruisers. Fire on my mark. The space around the Council station lit up with weapons fire. Human missiles streaked toward their targets. While Zephyrian plasma beams cut through the darkness, the battle was fierce and immediate. With no time for careful planning or complicated maneuvers, Engineer Lisa Grant was working frantically in the Liberty's engine room when the ship took its first hit. The lights flickered and warning alarms sounded throughout the vessel. Lisa knew that human ships were built to take damage and keep fighting, but the Zephyrians had brought their best weapons to this battle. Bridge, this is engineering, Lisa called over the intercom. We can take a few more hits like that, but our shield generators are already running at maximum capacity. On the Council station, panic was spreading through the civilian areas. Thousands of alien diplomats and workers were trying to find shelter as the battle raged outside their windows. Many had never experienced violence of any kind, let alone a space battle with weapons capable of destroying entire cities. Major Chris Thompson led a team of human Marines from the Liberty to the Council station's command center. Chris was 34 years old and had been fighting Zephyrians since he was 22. He moved through the alien corridors with the confidence of someone who had seen every kind of combat situation imaginable. Council Speaker Veltar, Chris called out as he entered the command center. My Marines are here to help with evacuation procedures. Veltar was standing near a large display showing the battle outside. His 4 arms were moving frantically as he tried to coordinate with various alien ship captains. His blue skin had turned pale with stress. Major Thompson, Veltar said, our defensive systems are failing. Many of our ships have never been in combat before. Their crews do not know what to do. Chris looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was holding its own against the Zephyrians, but the aliens were slowly being pushed back. Several Council ships had already been destroyed, and others were fleeing the battle area. Sir, Chris said, we need to evacuate the civilian areas of the station. If the Zephyrians break through our lines, they will target the population centers. First, as if responding to his words, a Zephyrian plasma blast struck the station's outer hull. The entire structure shuddered, and emergency lights began flashing throughout the command center. Dr. Amy Foster was in the diplomatic quarters when the attack began. She immediately began helping alien families evacuate to the station's emergency Shelters. Many of the aliens were so frightened they could barely move. Amy found herself guiding groups of scared civilians through corridors she barely knew herself. "This way," Amy called out to a group of insectoid beings who seemed frozen with terror. "The emergency shelters are just ahead." She helped an elderly alien who reminded her of a walking tree, supporting him as they moved down the corridor. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder as explosions echoed through the station's hull. Back in space, the battle was reaching a critical point. The Zephyrians had concentrated their fire on the human fleet, trying to break through to the station. Captain Ben Rodriguez found his destroyer surrounded by enemy ships, but he continued fighting with typical human determination. "All weapons. Continuous fire," Ben ordered. "Do not let them get past us." The Vigilant shook under repeated hits, but Ben kept his ship in position. Around him, other human vessels were taking similar punishment while protecting the alien ships behind them. "Commander." Jake Harrison watched the battle unfold from the Liberty's bridge. The Zephyrians were pushing hard, but the human fleet was holding. Then he saw something that changed everything. A group of Zephyrian fighters had broken away from the main battle and were heading directly for the station's civilian sections. They carried boarding pods filled with enemy soldiers. Jake realized that the space battle was just a distraction. The real attack was aimed at the helpless civilians inside the station. "All ships," Jake called out over the communication channel. "Enemy boarding craft approaching the station. We need to intercept them before they reach the civilian areas." But the human ships were already fully engaged with the main Zephyrian fleet. There was no one available to stop the boarding attack. Jake made a decision that would define humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council forever. "Helm," he ordered. "Take us between those fighters and the station. All power to forward." "Shields." "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "that will put us directly in the path of the Zephyrian flagship's main guns. We cannot survive that kind of firepower." Jake looked at the thousands of alien civilians visible through the station's transparent sections. Families with children. Elderly beings who had lived peaceful lives for centuries. Scientists and diplomats who had never hurt anyone. "Set course," Jake said quietly. "We are going to protect them." The Liberty turned toward the incoming Zephyrian fighters, placing herself between the enemy and the helpless civilians inside the Council station. The Liberty's hull glowed red-hot as Zephyrian plasma beams struck her forward shields. Commander Jake Harrison held onto his command chair as the ship bucked and shook under the massive impact. Warning lights flashed across every control panel, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. "Forward shields at 15%, called out Lieutenant Sarah Kim from her station. "We cannot take much more of this." Jake watched the tactical display as Zephyrian fighters closed in on the Council station's civilian sections. His ship was absorbing incredible punishment, but she was buying precious time for the evacuation. Behind him, he could see human Marines, helping alien families reach the emergency shelters. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Admiral Parker is ordering us to withdraw. She says the Liberty is taking too much damage." "Tell the Admiral we will withdraw when the civilians are safe," Jake replied. "Not before." Another massive blast struck the Liberty's bow. This time, sparks flew from several control panels and the lights dimmed throughout the bridge. Jake knew his ship was dying, but she was still fighting. Captain Ben Rodriguez, watching from the Vigilant, saw what Jake was doing and made his own decision. "All ships," he called over the fleet channel, "form up on the Liberty. We protect the station together." One by one, human destroyers and frigates moved to support Jake's position. They formed a defensive wall between the Zephyrian fleet and the Council station, each ship taking tremendous damage but refusing to retreat. Inside the station, Major Chris Thompson was leading evacuation efforts in the diplomatic quarter. He found Council Speaker Veltar helping to carry injured aliens to the medical bay. The tall blue alien's robes were torn and stained, but he was working alongside the human Marines without complaint. "Speaker Veltar," Chris said, "you should be in the command bunker. It is not safe here." "Major," Veltar replied, still supporting a wounded reptilian diplomat, "these are my people." I will not abandon them while others risk their lives to save us. Chris nodded with respect. He had seen many leaders during the war, and he knew courage when he saw it. Together, they helped move the injured alien to safety. Dr. Amy Foster was in the medical bay, working alongside alien doctors to treat the wounded. She had no formal medical training, but 12 years of war had taught every human basic first aid. She held pressure bandages on wounds while alien surgeons worked to save lives. "Doctor," said a crystalline being who seemed to be made of living gemstones, "why are your people sacrificing themselves for us? We barely know each other." Amy looked up from the patient she was helping. The crystal being's inner light was pulsing with what she guessed was confusion or fear. "Because it is the right thing to do," Amy said simply. "No one deserves to die just because someone else wants to hurt them." The crystal being stared at her for a long moment, then returned to treating wounded patients with renewed determination. In space, the battle was reaching its climax. The Liberty was barely holding together, her hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere from dozens of holes. But Jake's sacrifice was working. The last of the civilian evacuations were almost complete. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Kim reported, "the Zephyrian flagship is charging its main weapon. If they fire that at us, we are finished." Jake looked at the massive enemy ship on his display. Its main gun was a planet killer designed to destroy entire cities from orbit. If it fired on the Liberty at this range, there would be nothing left but scattered atoms. "All hands," Jake announced over the ship's intercom. "Brace for impact." But the killing blow never came. Instead, Captain Ryan Bell's destroyer UES Defiant rammed into the Zephyrian flagship at full speed. The collision was spectacular, with both ships disappearing in a massive explosion that lit up the entire battle area. "Ryan," Jake whispered, watching his friend's ship die. The destruction of their flagship broke the Zephyrian attack. The remaining enemy ships began to retreat, their assault having failed completely. But the cost had been enormous for both sides. Admiral Lisa Parker arrived on the Liberty's bridge as damage. Control teams worked to keep the ship from falling apart. Lisa was limping from a wound she had received when her own ship took a direct hit, but she had insisted on coming to check on Jake personally. "Status report," she ordered. "We lost the Defiant and the Courage," Jake reported. "The Vigilant and the Guardian are heavily damaged but operational. Total casualties are 437 killed, 612 wounded." Lisa nodded grimly. Those numbers were light casualties for a battle this size, but every lost life was someone's family member, someone's friend. "What about the station?" "All civilians evacuated successfully," Jake replied. "No alien casualties in the protected areas." 3 days after the battle, Jake found himself in a hospital bed in the Council Station's medical facility. He had been injured when a plasma conduit exploded near the Liberty's bridge, but the alien doctors said he would recover completely. Dr. Amy Foster entered his room carrying a tablet full of reports. She was wearing a medical gown over her diplomatic uniform, having been injured while helping evacuate wounded aliens during the attack. "How are you feeling?" she asked, settling into a chair beside his bed. "Like I got hit by a freight train," Jake replied. "But alive, which is more than I expected 3 days ago." Amy activated her tablet and showed him a news report. The screen displayed images of the battle and interviews with alien survivors. "Listen to this," Amy said and played an audio recording. Voice belonged to Sasara, the flower-like council member who had questioned human peaceful accomplishments. "I was wrong about the humans," Tassara was saying. "I thought they were violent and dangerous. But when death came for us, they stood between us and destruction. They sacrificed themselves to protect people they had known for only 3 weeks." Amy switched to another recording. This one was from General Kickstar, the reptilian military officer. "Human tactical doctrine is unlike anything we have studied," Kickstar explained. "They adapt quickly to changing situations and are willing to accept losses that other species would find unacceptable. But what impressed me most was their decision to protect non-combatants at the cost of military advantage." Jake listened to several more recordings. Alien after alien spoke about human courage, human sacrifice, and human character. These were the same beings who had been afraid of humanity just weeks before. The council voted this morning, Amy continued. Unanimous approval for full membership. But that is not the interesting part. She switched to a new document on her tablet. They also voted to establish something called the Joint Defense Initiative. They want humans to help design defensive strategies for council worlds. They are offering us military contracts worth more than our entire annual budget. Jake raised an eyebrow. They want to hire us as protectors? More than that, Amy said. They want to learn from us. 23 different species have requested military advisors. 15 want to purchase human weapons technology. And get this, they want to build a joint military academy. Jake thought about that. A few weeks ago, the council had been afraid of human military capabilities. Now they wanted to learn those same capabilities for themselves? There is something else, Amy continued. Council Speaker Veltar asked me to give you this. She handed Jake a small crystal tablet with alien writing carved into its surface. It is a citation for valor, Amy explained. The first one the council has awarded in over 200 years. Veltar said that your actions during the battle changed how the entire galaxy sees humanity. Jake looked at the crystal tablet, feeling its weight in his hands. Such a small thing to represent such massive changes. Do you think we did the right thing? He asked. Amy smiled. Jake, we showed them that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy. We proved that warriors can also be guardians. I think that might be the most important thing humanity has ever accomplished. Outside the hospital window, Jake could see human and alien workers repairing battle damage to the station. They worked side by side, no longer strangers but allies who had faced danger together. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrian attack on the council station. The galaxy was a different place now, and so was humanity's role in it. Fleet Admiral Jake Harrison stood on the observation deck of the new Joint Command Station, watching ships from dozens of different species conduct training, exercises in the space around them. The command station was built in orbit around Luna, Earth's moon. It had been Jake's idea to place the headquarters there, close to humanity's home, but accessible to all council species. The station was 3 times larger than the old council chambers, designed specifically for military coordination and defense. Planning. Jake wore a new uniform now, one that combined human military traditions with council diplomatic symbols. On his collar were the stars of a fleet admiral, a rank created specifically for his position as commander of the Joint Defense Initiative. It felt strange to wear symbols of authority over beings from hundreds of different worlds. Admiral, called Captain Ellen Price, his new chief of staff. Ellen was 32 years old and had served aboard destroyers during the worst years of the Zephyrian War. She had been chosen for this position because she understood both human military thinking and alien diplomatic needs. The morning briefing is ready, Ellen continued. Representatives from 12 species are requesting updates on the Outer Rim. Patrol schedules. Jake nodded and followed Ellen to the command center. The room was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all wearing uniforms that mixed their own cultural symbols with the new Joint Defense insignia. Humans worked alongside reptilian hegemony officers, insectoid collective tacticians, and crystalline archive strategists. The war against the Zephyrian Empire had changed completely since the Council joined the fight. What had once been humanity's lonely struggle was now a galaxy-wide effort involving hundreds of species and thousands of ships. The Zephyrians, who had once seemed unstoppable, now found themselves outnumbered and outmatched. Dr. Amy Foster entered the command center carrying a diplomatic pouch. She now served as both Earth's ambassador to the Council and as Secretary of Interspecies Relations, a new position created to handle the complex politics of the Alliance. Her job was to make sure that hundreds of different cultures could work together without destroying each other. "Good morning, Admiral," Amy said. "I have reports from the diplomatic front." "Good news or bad news?" Jake asked. "Mostly good," Amy replied with a smile. "The Ultruan Collective has agreed to share their shield technology with human engineers. The hegemony wants to establish 3 more joint training facilities, and the archive species is offering to help design new communication systems for the fleet. Jake was amazed by how much had changed. 6 months ago, these same species had been afraid to talk to humans. Now they were offering their most advanced technologies and asking for human military advice in return. Colonel Steve Mitchell walked into the command center wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Military Academy. Steve now served as the Academy's commandant, responsible for training young beings from dozens of species in human military tactics and alien cooperation strategies. Admiral, Steve reported, the first class of cadets graduated yesterday. 67 beings from 23 different species. They are ready for assignment to active duty units. Jake remembered when Steve had been suspicious of all aliens, treating them as potential threats rather than potential allies. Now he was teaching alien youth how to protect their own worlds using lessons learned from human experience. Any problems with the integrated training? Jake asked. Nothing we cannot handle, Steve replied. Some species learn faster than others, and there are always cultural misunderstandings. But they all want to learn. They have seen what happens when peaceful civilizations face real threats. The Academy had been built on Luna as well, close to the command station but separate enough to maintain its educational mission. Human instructors taught courses on tactics, strategy, and leadership while alien professors covered diplomacy, xenobiology, and cultural studies. The goal was to create military officers who could fight when necessary but who understood the value of peace. Captain Ben Rodriguez entered the command center with a datapad full of fleet reports. Ben now commanded a mixed squadron of human destroyers and alien escort vessels. His ships patrolled the outer rim, protecting trade routes and watching for Zephyrian activity. Admiral, Ben reported, the patrol captured another Zephyrian raider yesterday. That makes 15 this month. Their empire is falling apart. Jake looked at the tactical display showing Zephyrian territory. Large sections were marked in red, indicating systems that had declared independence from the Empire. Other areas showed no activity at all, suggesting that the Zephyrian government could no longer control its own worlds. Any signs of surrender? Jake asked. Not from the main government, Ben replied. But individual ship captains are starting to defect. 3 Zephyrian vessels requested asylum at council stations this week. The collapse of the Zephyrian Empire was happening faster than anyone had expected, faced with a united galaxy instead. Of isolated human colonies, the Empire's military had proven unable to cope with the new reality. Their tactics, designed for attacking weak targets, failed completely against coordinated defense. Engineer Lisa Grant appeared on the communication screen from the main shipyard orbiting Mars. Lisa now supervised the construction of new vessels that combined human durability with alien technology. The ships being built were unlike anything that had existed before, created by minds from different worlds working together. Admiral, Lisa reported, the first squadron of joint design cruisers will be ready for trials next week. They are faster than anything we have built before, but they can take as much damage as our old battleships. Jake was proud of what Lisa and her teams had accomplished. Human engineers had learned to work with alien scientists who thought in completely different ways. Together, they were creating technologies that neither species could have developed alone. What about the weapon systems? Jake asked. Better than expected, Lisa replied. The hegemony plasma cannons work perfectly with our targeting systems. The collective shield generators are 30% more efficient than our old designs. And the archive species helped us develop communication systems that cannot be jammed. Dr. Marcus Webb, the xenopsychologist who had studied alien reactions during humanity's first presentation to the Council, now worked as a cultural advisor for mixed crews. His job was to help beings from different worlds understand each other, well enough to serve together on the same ships. Admiral, Marcus reported, crew integration is proceeding better than projected. The shared experience of combat training has created bonds between species that diplomatic meetings never could have achieved. Jake thought about that. Combat training forced beings to depend on each other for survival, when a human sailor had to trust an alien engineer to keep the ship's engines running during battle. Cultural differences became less important than competence and reliability. The communication system activated with an incoming message from the council chambers. Council. Speaker Veltar appeared on the main screen. His forearms moving in gestures that Jake had learned indicated satisfaction and confidence. Admiral Harrison, Veltar said, I am calling with excellent news. The Zephyrian High Command has sent a message requesting negotiations for a ceasefire agreement. Jake felt a mixture of relief and caution. After 12 years of war, the possibility of peace seemed almost too good to believe. What are their terms? Jake asked. They want to discuss borders and territorial agreements, Veltar replied. But Admiral, they are asking specifically to negotiate with you personally. They say they will only discuss terms with the human commander who defeated their fleet at the council station. Jake looked around the command center at the faces watching him, humans and aliens who had worked together to build something that had never existed before. A true alliance based on mutual respect and shared sacrifice. Tell them I will consider their request, Jake said. But any negotiations will include representatives from all council species. This war involved the entire galaxy, and the entire galaxy will be part of the peace. After Veltar ended the communication, Amy approached Jake with a thoughtful expression. Do you think they really want peace? She asked. Jake looked out at the mixed fleet conducting exercises in the space around. Luna, human ships flew in formation with vessels that had once seemed impossibly alien. Crews that had once been strangers now worked together as a single fighting force. I think they finally understand that they cannot win, Jake replied. When we arrived at the council station 6 months ago, we were refugees from a war we were fighting alone. Now we are part of something much larger than humanity ever was by itself. Amy nodded. And if they try to break the peace? Jake smiled grimly. Then they will face not just humanity, but the entire galaxy united against them. That is not a war they can win. Outside the command station, the training exercises continued. Ships from dozens of worlds practiced maneuvers that would have been impossible without the cooperation forged in battle. The galaxy had learned to defend itself, and humanity had found its place not as conquerors, but as teachers and protectors of a peace worth fighting for.